How Mikel Merino will fit in at Arsenal. Today we're going to be diving through his time at Real Sociedad, the role he plays, and the benefits that he's going to bring to Arsenal. I love this signing, but find out why a little bit later on in the video. Anyway, if you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video, but anyway, let's get this party started. So before we dive into how Mikel Merino will fit in at Arsenal, let's go back and understand his role at Sociedad and what advantages and benefits it will give Mikel Arteta and Arsenal in the Premier League. So very much as we mentioned, Merino is a box-to-box midfielder that played as a left central midfielder for Sociedad in their 4-3-3. His midfield partners, Zubimendi and Mendes, had a really good understanding and relationship with him. So let's take it through the thirds and understand Mikel Merino's role as this kind of box-to-box midfielder. Why I would call him a box-to-box midfielder is not only does he get involved deep, from a defensive perspective, defending the penalty area and making those interceptions and big tackles, but also he attacks the opposition's box really well, hence the use of the box-to-box term. So Merino in the defensive third, let's start about that from a possession perspective. So Sociedad do like to build out from the back, which is going to be good news for Arsenal, as that's exactly what they do as well. So Zubimendi is a little bit of a linchpin in this team. He's the guy that Sociedad are trying to get on the ball in this defensive third to allow him to play forward to his teammates. But teams obviously work that one out, so they usually have a man that sits on Zubimendi. So Merino is tactically very good. He understands where he needs to be. In the defensive third, if the opposition of, let's say, got a man-to-man marker on the number 4, he'll drop off into little pockets of space to receive bounce passes. He very much is a bit of a target in the defensive third. Sociedad will utilise his ability to not only play one touch and drop it to the fullbacks and so forth, but also his strength. He's a very strong player which will adapt very well to the Premier League, that he can hold off that pressure behind him, but he's also got a little bit of a skill in him as well if he needs to do a drag back or so forth to create himself a little bit of space to maybe play forward to the left back. He's got that ability. He can also roll at certain times. From a tactical perspective as well, it's not just the kind of left-hand side that he drops into. At times he'll drop into the right side. Again, similar option, into feet, to try and basically either pull the 10 over and free Zubimendi to play forward, or utilise the width of Sociedad's build-up. So that's one option in the defensive third. He's a really good option into feet. At times, if he can get himself turned, of course, he will play forward. The duality of Mikel Merino is really nice. He ranks in the 76th percentile for both progressive passes played and progressive passes received. Quite an interesting statistic. That means he's playing the ball forward to his teammates at certain times, but he's also receiving in between the lines or in an advanced area to get the ball closer to the opposition's goal. Looking at the statistics in terms of Declan Rice at West Ham matches up quite well in terms of progressive passes played, but also if you look at Ødegaard at Sociedad, Mikel Merino is receiving more progressive passes. So that duality is good. And not only was he mentioned there, if he can get himself freed and look for that forward pass, he's got the ability on that left foot to play it. His left foot is very, very good. He plays passes with real whip and determination, but also he's pretty decent on the right foot as well. He's a very two-footed complete midfielder. A complete box-to-box midfielder is probably the exact role that you could kind of describe Mikel Merino as. But let's move forward to a slightly different option in the defensive third. Merino is brilliant in the air. He's almost Sociedad's Marouane Fellaini. He wins on average 6 aerial duels per 90. If you compare that to the Arsenal squad, that's twice as many as any player won last season. Kai Havertz is the only player in the Arsenal squad to win over 3. Mikel Merino is winning 6 per 90. And that's used in a number of different ways. Let's say Sociedad are getting really, really squeezed and Mendes has dropped on the ball to kind of maybe help the build-up and receive, but then number 6 has followed. Merino tactically is really good with space and understanding of teammates, as we mentioned before. If this happens, he'll simply rotate high. His understanding with the rest of the players in the kind of midfield triangle is really good. That's something that I like about Merino. He understands his teammates in this midfield triangle, but also really good in the wide triangles as well. But in terms of that kind of play and build up and so forth, what you'll tend to see Sociedad do is playing the ball out of the defensive third, long ball up to Merino to allow him to link with his teammates. Alternatively, he can become a bit of a decoy if he wants to collapse the opposition's backline, open up the long ball out wide. Sociedad, like Arsenal, are very tactically fluid and flexible, and Merino is a really good weapon for that in the final third, but also in the middle third and the defensive third when they're building up. So let's say Sociedad have bounced through that midfield line and played through, so they're getting into the middle third of the pitch. From this position, Mikel Merino is very tactically aware, can play as a 6 and 8 and as a 10. As a number 6, what will tend to happen is if Zubimendi moves off the ball, another way to escape that pressure is simply Zubimendi pulling his man marker into a deeper zone. Mendes could also make a forward motion to pull the number 6. What that means at times for the opposition number 8 is they've got to potentially deal with the false 9 dropping off, which could leave Mikel Merino that ability to pick up the ball and play forward. He's got the potential, the technique to play those passes into all of the attackers, or simply play a little 1-2 with Zubimendi and then get himself forward. He could do it as a number 6. As a number 8, it is about him receiving in between the lines. Very much Sociedad, they set up in this kind of 4-1-4 shape in an attacking sense, with both central midfielders operating in the inside channels, or the right half space and the left half space, key areas where you want to get your attacking players in those zones. But in terms of Moreno as a number 8, again, it's that bounce option, but also he's a player that's really good receiving into feet. His first touch is excellent, and also usually opens himself up quite well. One thing I've noticed with him as well that I quite like is, normally you're taught to receive with your body in between the ball, so you're receiving maybe on that left foot and instantly turning yourself. Moreno at times kind of receives the other way, where he receives across his body, draws the opposition in to make a tackle, and then breaks past them and then carries through. It's something that I feel that he could develop, his carrying game, because he's really good on the carry. Maybe the frequency could improve for Arsenal. Got a good first touch, got skills. He's almost like that kind of classic Spanish player where his feet are definitely better than you expect. He looks like a Marouane Fellaini type player, barrel-chested, big, but his feet are really good to escape pressure in those moments. Alternatively, as we mentioned previously, in the middle third, can very much operate as a direct option, to stretch the opposition from a direct perspective. If it's gone back to the middle third and, let's say, centre half, and Sociedad want to, again, be a little bit more direct, they could do that. Hit Moreno and he can link with his teammates. So let's move to the final third. I think this is where the exciting side is for Moreno and for Arsenal, is he operates really well. Not only has he got that ability to play through balls, what you'll tend to see with Moreno when he's playing through balls is sometimes he'll be in a bit of a wider area. But what he very much does is he plays the through ball ahead of the winger. So he hits it with quite a lot of speed, which means that you're naturally giving your winger the opportunity to spin in. Naturally, wingers will be faster than fullbacks, so you're giving a natural advantage playing the ball ahead of the winger to instantly get in. Alternatively, if it's kind of in the middle third, you're breaking in behind the opposition's defence with a lot of space. I think Saka and Martinelli could be great options for this, because not only has Mikel Merino got the ability to play that pass on his left foot, but also I've seen when he's drifted to the right side against Sociedad, are a super fluid team. He's got the ability on his right foot to play those same, deep passes behind the opposition's fullback. And I quite like that about him, is he's got the vision to do it, but also he can spot that move. And again, talking about vision, let's say back on the left-hand side, we'll talk a lot about this later on, but if the kind of, the attackers maybe moved inside, he has got that ability to spot that fullback getting behind the opposition's defence. So through balls in the final third, a key part of his game, something he likes to do, getting his head up. But let's move on to him being a link man, because I think this is where he really, really excels. So, in terms of Arsenal, similar to Real Sociedad, they like to move you around. They try and draw you over to one flank. So let's take a little bit of an example here of Sociedad drawing their oppositions over to the right wing. Tactically, they're very positional, as a side. But what they like to do is they like to pull you over and then switch the play. Of course, we know the natural kind of, switch could come from, let's say, a defensive midfielder just playing a long switch out wide to either the winger, Barrenechea, or, alternatively the left fullback making that attacking move. But what I like in certain times is playing quickly through midfield, going from the right half space to the left half space after you've drawn the opponents on. And what you see with Sociedad is not only their positional, but they also have relational concepts of overloading certain flanks. So what you'll tend to see, Kubo holding the width, Mendes moving over, and the false 9 also operating in that zone, trying to create an overload from a body perspective in that area. Let's say Kubo's got the ball. What I like about Moreno in this position, not only is he very tactically aware, is that he will hold the half space. Again, the half space isn't a fixed area. Something that I think gets gets a little bit lost at times, with the markings on the pitch that we see with training. The half space is not constantly that. The half space moves. And Merino is very good at utilising his awareness to find the half space. At this time, the half space is this type of area. It's a space in between the fullback, centre-back, the winger and the midfielder. What I think is really good about Merino in these zones is how quickly he is on the ball. That he'll take a touch and play first time, but he'll play a pass with whip on it. And if we go to the Champions League from this season, there was 2 moments where Merino was heavily involved in 2 of Sociedad's goals, both against Benfica. But both very similar, where Sociedad drew the opposition over to the right-hand side, played through midfield, Merino took a very good quick first touch, and then whipped the ball out to Barrenechea to create a 1v1 or a superiorative overload, where basically what you're saying is that Barrenechea, has got a 1v1 with a player that he's better than, a player that he can beat with skills, and a player that he did that twice to. So let's take a look at those 2 moments. The first one in the first game was a second assist pass. Again, we can see Sociedad building down the right-hand side, with of course Merino moving over to that right half space, receives into feet, takes a brilliant first touch and whips the ball out wide with his left foot. Instantly, you can see the problem for Benfica. Barrenechea beats his fullback, cuts inside, feeds the striker, 1-0 to Real Sociedad. But also in the second game they played in the group stages, exactly the same move, but this time as the ball was switched in, one touch from Mikel Merino out of his feet, Barrenechea 1v1, cuts inside, finds the far post. This is going to be big for Arsenal. Think about who Arsenal have got wide in that area, Trossard or Martinelli. 2 players that absolutely excel in 1v1 situations, but at times don't get the ball served to them quick enough. That's something that Merino has done for Sociedad, but also in terms of a reflection for Arsenal as well, we know how good Arsenal's right-hand side is, with Ødegaard, with Saka and with Ben White. They create that a lot. That triangle on the right-hand side is created a lot. But Arsenal sometimes don't switch the ball quick enough. They usually look for maybe the pass backwards to Rice and then it goes back to the centre-back and then it goes. With someone like Mikel Merino, that's going to be sped up a lot in the final third to create more 1v1 situations for Arsenal's left winger. Alternatively, the left fullback potentially could make the overlap and make that run as well. But just think about the speed that could work quite well. So we spoke about his through balls in the final third, Merino's through balls, his link play. But let's talk about kind of his option in the half space. I think one of the interesting things with him as well is he does, when you're looking at the triangles, as we spoke about the right-hand side triangle there as kind of a concept, as a unit. We spoke about the midfield unit. Let's talk about this left-hand side, because he's got great relationship with the left back and the left winger on this flank. And what that tends to mean, as a footballer, is you have the awareness to know where you need to be. You've got a player that's going to support, you've got a player that's going to make a forward run, you've got a player that's usually normally going to be on the ball as the ball carrier. So that kind of setup of Merino, either playing these kind of clip balls over the top to Barrenechea in behind the defence. Alternatively, if Barrenechea is dropped or is inside, it's finding that pass for the fullback. But I do like the tactical awareness. At times, if Sociedad, as we mentioned previously, do like to go long, either from defensive midfield or out of the back, to hit Merino, or alternatively using him as a decoy. What that means is if he makes the forward kind of run in behind the opposition's defence, he's pulling the opposition over. What that tends to happen is you see the centre-back will move over, the full-back will move over, and what that will do is create massive space for Barrenechea on the left wing. Again, will be utilised really well for Arsenal. So instantly what you could see from Sociedad in these positions is that long ball played, and then Mikel Merino analysed the tactical situation. If the fullback is making a forward motion, he'll drop back. If the fullback's not making that forward motion, it's going to become that box threat, usually in between the 2 centre-backs, but more on that a little bit later on. So in terms of that support play, what I like about Merino, tactically very, very aware that if that ball is played out wide, and let's say Barrenechea is received, and there's space again, because he's slightly tucked in, it's going to be on the fullback, on the overlap. Of course, Mikel Merino is going to do as a very good tactical player. He's going to drop off the line a little bit. But alternatively, if it's very close to the box, he may just sit in the left half space or find him, make a little bit of a movement and then be in the left half space. From this positions, what I like he does is he likes to play left-footed crosses into the box, either for the number 9 or more frequently for Mendes to make that move. Think about how Arsenal could utilise that. They currently don't really have a left-footed crosser. They had that with Granit Xhaka in that position before he joined Leverkusen, but they don't really have that guy right now. That's not Kai Havertz's game. Kai Havertz is a brilliant link player as a left central midfielder, but arguably he's been better as a centre-forward for Arsenal, especially at the back end of the season. His stats are absolutely redonkulous. But Merino in that position has that left foot to play that left-footed cross, and that's exactly what he did against Benfica for a disallowed goal. So again, we go back to exactly the play that we previously described. The ball deep, a long ball with Mikel Merino pulling the defence over. It's so crucial here to create space. These little nuances or these moves off the ball are so important because football is a team game. You have to move as one organism. As Merino makes that move, it creates space for Barrenechea to get on the ball. The left back bombs on, and again, Merino reads that tactical play. Drops off the line, receives defeat, and then plays a brilliant ball for Mendes on the back post to head home. Unfortunately, slightly offside, but I love that play. Arsenal have got that on the kind of the right-hand side with potentially Ben White playing that pass, but on the left-hand side, they've really lacked a player to do that. A natural left-footed player to whip the ball in the box from the inside left channel, a big part of his game. So let's talk about one of his final strengths, and that's his ability to get into the box as a box crasher. This is something that, again, I think Arsenal could really do with. A player that's brilliant in the air, as I mentioned before, 6 aerial duels, 1 per game, but also got great direction on his heading. His volley technique's good. He finishes with power. So when Merino's attacking the box, when the ball's on the kind of right-hand side, what he'll tend to do is attack the space between the opposition's fullback and the centre-back. So usually what you'll see him is attack the space between the opposition's right-back and their right centre-back. You know, getting into a zone that in the Premier League we've seen works time and time again. Think Erling Haaland at Man City. This is the position where he scores all of his goals. And you think about Merino's physicality and ability to jump as well. Him getting into these areas and receiving those inverted crosses, only going to be goals for Arsenal. Alternatively, if the ball's on the left flank, what you'll tend to see with Merino, let's just shift the defence over, is you'll tend to see him attack the space on the blind side of that right-sided centre-back between the two centre-backs. And again, similar thing, you get a lot of right-footed left wingers crossing the ball, inverted and then heading in. We saw that exact goal against Germany in the crucial game at Euro 2024, arguably the final. Germany and Spain were the 2 best teams. But we can see it from this clip, the discipline of Mikel Merino. His teammates get drawn to the ball, but he's staying high. He's in a high position, he's waiting for the right play. After Dani Olmo receives the ball and cuts inside, you can see Merino's motion. His first is directly running at Rudiger, and then he's spinning onto the blind side last minute, and the header is brilliant. Right into the corner, keeper can't save it, and Spain go through to the final. But that's something that Arsenal could utilise. Think on that left-hand side, Martinelli or Trossard crossing the ball into the box, Merino attacking the space on the blind side of the centre-back that's closest to the ball. It's going to be goals for Arsenal. I think Merino could score even more goals. Per 90, he's got a great record last season, 0.2 non-penalty goals per 90, which ranked him in the top 6% of midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues. But given that Arsenal attack more, they're going to have more possession, more chances, Mikel Merino has got to be scoring 10-15 goals for Arsenal, and I think that's very much something that he could do. So I've spoken about all the good things that he does in an attacking sense. Defensively, Merino is a aggressive defender. He reminds me of like a traditional English box-to-box midfielder that, let's say the ball's going to get played into midfield. He's going to make that sliding aggressive tackle. They're not uncontrolled, but they're very, very powerful. He's a player that wins the ball back in an intimidating manner, which is great for the Premier League. This isn't a Spanish midfielder of, small, definitive, kind of David Silva vibes. This is a powerful central midfielder. Think an Atletico Madrid midfielder. That's kind of what Mikel Merino does, and is that aggressive. He got booked 10 times in La Liga last season, showing that aggression in those midfield zones. I absolutely love what he does. He's very, very powerful. He also reads the play really well, as we mentioned. Let's say if Zubimendi's jumped out to press, he's tactically aware enough to sit at number 6 and cover the play. We also mentioned he's quite a good box defender as well, but from a pressing situations is kind of where he excels. Sociedad do drop back to a 4-4-2 shape, as mentioned in our little intro section about him as a footballer, with Mendes operating on the right wing and Kubo moving inside and becoming that second striker. So when the opponents are kind of pressing out and the number 6 is kind of dropping on the ball, Mikel Merino is that player that will jump onto him and create a bit of a diamond structure similar to Arsenal, with Zubamendi becoming a bit narrow, the two wide players tucking in a little bit. Moreno is excellent in these positions. And when you look at his statistics, he won 18 tackles in the final third last season. For Arsenal, only Saka won more. Moreno will be a massive asset for Arsenal, pressing high and winning the ball back, creating counter-attacking situations for Arsenal like he did frequently for Real Sociedad with Kubo and the nominal striker, a player that will really, really improve Arsenal defensively. Not only that, when they're sitting in a defensive sense, of course, he drops as that defensive midfielder, again, using his aggression, his awareness and so forth. Perfect to sit next to Declan Rice. And now it moves on to where he'll fit in at Arsenal. Arsenal have been brilliant under Arteta, one of my favourite teams to watch in the Premier League. In terms of their setup, the 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 structure has kind of been the default shape for Arteta for a few years now. In terms of Moreno, he'll come in as a box-to-box midfielder in their 4-3-3. From this position, not only will he provide that kind of play in the final third or the inside left channel, but also defensively would join Declan Rice in defensive midfield, allowing Martin Odegaard to be more aggressive and press higher at the pitch. I think that's a really good part of the game for Arsenal, is we're going to see Moreno high, being the link man between the left-hand side of the pitch and the right-hand side of the pitch. Odegaard operating in the inside channel on the other side. Declan Rice being joined by a whole host of players. I think this is another interesting thing for Arsenal. We could see Calafiori dropping into that central position. Alternatively, we could see Ben White. At times he plays slightly more inside. Well, last season he did, creating a back three with Gabriel and Calafiori operating a little bit wider. But very much operating, as we mentioned, as that player in the final third, as that player in build-up, dropping off to be a bounce option at certain times to receive into feet, but also being that direct option that Arsenal can hit out the back. I think that will allow them to be really tactically difficult to play against. At times, what we could see Arsenal do in build-up is actually Moreno staying high, and maybe even someone like, Calafiori being the one that moves inside. So basically creating a slightly different structure where Ben White could operate as a natural wing-back, Martin Odegaard could drop deep and get on the ball in those deep areas, and Calafiori could invert into midfield, meaning there's a direct option from either, one of the centre-halves or alternatively from David Raya. David Raya's got a great ability at hitting target man. When you looked at combinations when he was at Brentford, he had the highest combination from a goalkeeper to a striker in the Premier League. He hit Ivan Toney over and over again. That's something they could do with Moreno, giving his aerial prowess, as we mentioned before. 6 aerial duels, 1 per 90. That's something that Arsenal can do in a very direct manner if teams are pressing them high. And then you're thinking what that frees. That frees Martinelli, that frees Kai Havertz and Bukayo Saka to run at the opposition. Or alternatively, creates a shape with Moreno high, with Odegaard deep, Calafiori inverted, to allow Arsenal to potentially operate with Saka in the inside right channel, Ben White to operate more as the natural wing back, and you're creating a slightly different structure. In possession, Arsenal, again, like Manchester City, always need to evolve because teams find solutions against them. So building with a 2-3-5 structure could be utilised. As we mentioned before, you've got the direct ball to Moreno, or alternatively, Arsenal playing through, maybe utilising the ball down that right-hand side to Ben White on the overlap, simply switch through. We mentioned before how quick Moreno is to open his body up and play. Then you've got potentially Gabriel Martinelli running in behind the defence. And if we're looking from a defensive perspective, of course, with Arsenal, playing to win the ball back, they drop back into the 4-4-2 structure. Again, with kind of a very dynamic and aggressive block that's good at moving left to right. Moreno will very much operate as this left central midfielder. I think in terms of the players that have played there for Arsenal in the last year, you've either had Declan Rice play there if Jorginho is at defensive midfield, or Kai Havertz. Moreno massively upgrades this zone. In terms of possession won through duels, Moreno won possession back more than any other player in Europe's top 5 leagues. His ability to win the ball back in that middle area is going to be massive for Arsenal. Not only will it help Arsenal out in games where they're playing teams that hit you on the break, but also in the big games against your Manchester Cities. That physicality, as we mentioned before, super aggressive to get out, will hit you early. It sets a tempo. I think it's something that Arsenal have slightly lacked in central midfield, is someone to be truly aggressive in that zone. That's something that Moreno could do, jumping out and making those massive, massive tackles. So I think from a tactical perspective, that midfield three of Declan Rice, Mikel Merino, Martin Odegaard provides creativity, provides defensive stability in Declan Rice, and a player that can be aggressive and can be hit high up the pitch. As we mentioned when talking about Real Sociedad, the fluidity of this could be really good. You know, at times Declan Rice could almost drive himself forward, with Odegaard maybe dropping deep with Moreno to get on the ball, creating a slightly different structure. Think how Real Madrid used Casemiro at times in the Champions League, where the likes of Toni Kroos and Luka Modric would drop deep and get on the ball. The defensive midfielder would just clear the zone, get out there and be another body in the final third, something that Arsenal could do. We see that at times with Zubamendi at Real Sociedad, him pushing forward and Moreno becoming that nominal number 6, creating a lot of fluidity in Arsenal's play in that midfield zone. But it's a great front three. And I think on top of that, when you're looking at the other options Arsenal have got, to play that position, they want to go for a ball player, Jorginho. What happens for Arsenal? How could they play with maybe these 4 players? Potentially you could look at dropping Kai Havertz, Odegaard becoming the false 9, similar to what we've seen Kevin De Bruyne do in the Premier League. That not only will allow you someone like Jorginho at the base that's going to play, but you've got 2 aggressive players in there in Moreno and Declan Rice that can go and win the ball back high up the pitch. This could be the big game system for them, where they've just super overloaded the opposition. They've pinned the back 4 with Martinelli and or Trossard with Bukayo Saka, and this midfield diamond has got so much work rate in it, but it's also got the passing quality of all the players, Moreno, Odegaard, Rice and Jorginho, allowing Arsenal to really dominate. Think of it more maybe as a 4-4-2 diamond with the setup we've got right now, allowing Arsenal to play slightly different against your Manchester Cities. Man City love to defend in a 4-4-2. This attacking structure overloads that. I think at times we see in these bigger games between Arsenal and Man City, the players that get the ball the most are usually the fullbacks. So this natural shape of a 4-4-2 diamond with the fullbacks, both Calafiori and Ben White, are very comfortable in the attacking third. It means Moreno and Rice will operate as a right half, left half, Jorginho as a playmaker. But this is slightly different. I feel like teams are going to kind of go back to this model. The fullbacks seem to get a lot of space and a lot of attacking opportunity in these big games, and this could be a way to utilise it. Think of this structure a little bit like Jurgen Klopp's setup in the big games when he just joined the Premier League, when he was playing kind of a narrow front three and fullbacks would fly forward. Arsenal could do that with Moreno in the lineup, operating as this kind of left half. Naturally being left-footed opens up a lot of passes that you're not going to get with a right footer in Declan Rice. Natural passes ahead of the player to play forward, but it just allows Arsenal to play this kind of 4-4-2 diamond, aggressive big game structure. So to conclude, is Mikel Merino a good signing for Arsenal? I'd argue that it's probably the best signing they could make on the market. They signed a 28-year-old that's just turned 28, just to make a bit of a note there, that's in the prime of his career, that's going to instantly improve the first 11. I think this signing is really underrated. I don't think people have looked hard enough at Mikel Merino. Of course, he's previously played in the Premier League for Newcastle United, but he was a teenager, a 20-year-old. The way that he's developed a Real Sociedad and the way that Sociedad play just works out so well for a signing for Arsenal. You got to remember as well that Mikel Merino has in fact played with Martin Odegaard before. The pair have played 34 games together in the season. They were both at Real Sociedad. Moreno adds that quality for Arsenal. You're thinking about the Trossard signing, that massively improved the Arsenal squad. Similar with the Jorginho signing 2 older players for a really good deal. Mikel Merino had 1 year left at Real Sociedad, but I'd also argue that this signing is better than both Jorginho and Trossard. You're getting a player that is truly in his prime and will truly improve Arsenal's first 11. With also, you're looking at what Arsenal have done in the summer. I love both of the signings. Calafiori is a top quality left back, defensively really, really good. His ball carrying and ability to carry out from the back is going to improve Arsenal. His play in the middle third of the pitch or his movement off the ball is fantastic. Can also do a job at centre-back. A great signing. Then when you think about Moreno, it's going to go down as one of the most underrated signings in the Premier League this season. He should add goals, aggression, tenacity, link play, through balls, defensive pressing. Should add a lot to Arsenal's game in central midfield. And that is really hard to say because Arsenal's midfield last season was really good. Think of him as the Granit Xhaka upgrade. That's no disrespect to Granit Xhaka. I love this Granit Xhaka by Leverkusen. But this role seems really well suited to Mikel Merino. Great bit of business for Arsenal once again and should get them even closer to Manchester City and that Premier League title. But anyway, guys, if you are new around here, make sure to subscribe and get in the comments below. Do you think Merino will be a good signing for Arsenal? I've been Statman Dave. Subscribe if you're new. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel?